is just fantastic. Captain's Log, Subdates 211026.4. The administrative wing of the Halls of Injustice are getting a major remodel, so I've put all the related stuff into an ISO-cube until the work is complete. Psst, it will never be complete. Welcome everyone to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome inmate number 099, Simon Bramhall, to the ISO-cubes. His crime is quite a unique one, and under UK law actually set a legal precedent, because there was no law for the nature of the crime he committed at the time, which means that when it comes to sentencing guidelines we can only go with the charges he then faced for the crime he committed. For 10 years, Simon Bramhall worked at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham as a liver, spleen and pancreatic consultant. So he was by extension also a hospital surgeon. Being a consultant, he was the expert when it came to transplants. And so for this crime, we now go back to 2013, February and August more notably. Simon Bramhall was involved in a number of transplants during that time. And it was during that time that he committed his rather unique crime. When it comes to transplanting, something you would use to cauterize small blood vessels is called an argon beam coagulator. It's a fun little device. Let's call it that. It has many functions, but the small blood vessel one is the more notable. Simon was in charge of using this device during a couple operations. These operations, though, are where he committed the crime. So what Simon did, because he's a genius, is he wanted people to eventually know who it was that operated on them. And this might sound a bit like Scrubs, where Turk sewed his initials into JD after taking his appendix out. Simon did something similar, but this is where the argon beam coagulator comes in. He didn't sew his initials in, no, he instead wrote his initials SB, roughly 4 centimeters in size, onto the transplanted organ, which I'll admit is rather unique. I'm not sure though if it played a part in what happened next, because Simon never got rumbled until 2017, when one of those liver transplants, gave up, and upon closer inspection they saw his name. Now I do want to insert, I doubt him writing his name onto that liver played a part in it not taking for as long as it could have. The body is quite strange, and as robust as a liver can be, the body will fight back against anything it considers to be a foreign object anyway. So in 2017, when they saw the letters SB, Simon Bramhall was arrested, but understandably they weren't entirely sure what charges to levy. So there were 2 types, with 2 charges for each. One was assault by beating, and the other was causing actual bodily harm. Now, in my mind, causing actual bodily harm is more accurate, a descriptor for the nature of what he had done. And I won't deny, writing initials of yourself in someone does tickle me a little, and I don't mean that ironically. It is still a crime though, and it must be treated as such, even if there is no legal precedent. Shortly after being arrested and charged, Simon Bramhall, after working for 10 years at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, handed in his resignation so as to, separate himself from them. He also submitted his medical license and has not practiced medicine since, which is for the best. Since Simon Bramhall has been put on blast, it's understandable that no one would want them to be touched by him, least of all those who have suffered psychological trauma once they found out that you had inappropriately written your name or your initials inside their bodies, which has been confirmed in the courts when this went to court. Tony Badenoch, QC for the prosecution, said the case was without legal precedent in criminal law, and that Simon Bramhall's actions had not just been ethically wrong, but he had broken the law, telling the court this has been a highly unusual and complex case, both within the medical expert testimony served by both sides, and in the law. Bramhall's initialing on the patient's liver was not an isolated incident, but rather a repeated act on 2 occasions requiring some skill and concentration. It was done in the presence of colleagues. They were carried out with a disregard for the feelings of an unconscious patient. It was an unlawful application of force to patients while anesthetized. The pleas of guilty now entered represent an acceptance. That which he did was not just ethically wrong but criminally wrong. Something within that doesn't get much coverage is the fact he did this in front of other people. I'm sure he could have used the excuse of, it was just a dare, but he didn't, thankfully. What happened to those who were in that room? There would be records of it, and I don't just mean the patient, I mean others that clearly saw him do this, because it takes time to use an argon beam coagulator. It's not like a Sharpie. Now, he had pled not guilty to actual bodily harm, which was accepted by the prosecution in favour of 2 charges of assault by beating. For the sake of understanding sentencing, when it comes to assault by beating, the sentence can be up to 26 weeks in custody, a fine or a community order. 2 charges though, surely that would be doubled, right? Well, initially the judge was unable to sentence. Because of the nature of this crime, he wasn't entirely sure how best to do it. So until January the 12th, 2018, he was granted unconditional bail. In 2018, he was sentenced to no weeks in custody. He was given a £10,000 fine and made to serve a community order for 1 year. A medical tribunal also suspended him for 5 months, which was utterly redundant because he'd walked away from medicine anyway. Now, this sounds like an old case. Why would we want to talk about it? Well, it's been resurfacing over the last 3 years. Every single time, because many believe that the sentence was insufficient, which had been further corroborated by the General Medical Council, who had ordered a fresh hearing because they'd appealed the 5-month suspension. This went so far that a High Court judge, Mrs. Justice Collins Rice, ruled that the tribunal itself, the Medical Practitioners Tribunal, now need to reconsider the case because, as correctly identified by the General Medical Council, the suspension would not have protected public confidence in the profession. At the bottom of the article that I'm going to link all the sources in the pinned comment, it did also add something we didn't earlier know, and it was that the organ that they'd noticed that had failed a week after. So it's possible that this was the one that actually did fail because of his interference. Sorry, unprofessionalism. Now, this all again got buried and went away, but yet again it has in fact come back up, more recently because again it has not gone anywhere, which has led to another judge ruling that the case has to be considered by a new tribunal, saying that the Medical Practitioners Tribunal did not put its finger on precisely what was and was not wrong with Mr. Bramhall's conduct and sanction accordingly. It did not do full justice to this unique case. I am satisfied that the right way forward is to quash the sanctions determination and remit the case for a fresh determination by a differently constituted tribunal, which I 100% agree with. Now, granted, many would say he should never be allowed to practice medicine anyway ever again. I tend to agree. While anesthetized, you did something without their consent. Simple as that. Of course, because we're dicks here, I'd give you 52 weeks in prison as well. If we're going to take your original sentence and go with the maximum guidelines, the maximum guideline for one charge of assault by beating is 26 weeks. Well, 2 of those is 52. Enjoy prison. Get in your cube, you little bish. Now, as we're done, I'd like to know what you think. Please do let me know in the comments down below and drive up the engagement by smashing the like. If I don't see you on Twitch tonight, have a fantastic day, and thank you all very much. Oh, one last thing actually. We're going to use that argon beam coagulator to write our initials into every molecule of your body, Simon. Thank you all for listening.